Guinea-Guinea, officially the Republic of Guinea, is a country on the west coast of Africa, formerly known as French Guinea. The modern country is sometimes referred to as Guinea-Conakry in order to distinguish it from other parts of the wider region of the same name, such as Guinea-Bissau and Equatorial Guinea. Guinea has a population of 10.5 million and an area of 245,860 square kilometers. Guinea is a republic. The president is directly elected by the people and is head of state and head of government. The unicameral Guinean National Assembly is the legislative body of the country, and its members are also directly elected by the people. The judicial branch is led by the Guinea Supreme Court, the highest and final court of appeal in the country. Guinea is a predominantly Islamic country, with Muslims representing 85% of the population. Guinea's people belong to 24 ethnic groups. French, the official language of Guinea, is the main language of communication in schools, in government administration, in the media, but more than 24 indigenous languages are also spoken. Guinea's economy is largely dependent on agriculture and mineral production. It is the world's second largest producer of bauxite, and has rich deposits of diamonds and gold. Human rights in Guinea remain a controversial issue. In 2011, the United States government claimed that torture by security forces and abuse of women and children were ongoing abuses of human rights. The country is named after the Guinea region. Guinea is a traditional name for the region of Africa that lies along the Gulf of Guinea. It stretches north through the forested tropical regions and ends at the Sahel. The English term Guinea comes directly from the Portuguese word Guiné, which emerged in the mid-15th century to refer to the lands inhabited by the Guineas, a generic term for the black African peoples below the Senegal River, as opposed to the Tawny Zenaga Berbers above it, whom they called the Zenagsamors. The country was at the core of the 2014 Ebola outbreak. History. The land that is now Guinea belonged to a series of African empires until France colonized it in the 1890s, and made it part of French West Africa. Guinea declared its independence from France on the 2nd of October 1958. From independence until the presidential election of 2010, Guinea was governed by a number of autocratic rulers. West African empires and kingdoms in Guinea. What is now Guinea was on the fringes of the major West African empires. The Ghana Empire is believed to be the earliest of these, which grew on trade but contracted and ultimately fell due to the hostile influence of the Almoravids. It was in this period that Islam first arrived in the region. The Soso kingdom briefly flourished in the void, but the Islamic Manding Mali Empire came to prominence when Soundiata Kutita defeated the Soso ruler Samang Uro Kante at the semi-historical Battle of Kirina in c. 1235. The Mali Empire was ruled by Mansa, the most famous being Kanko Umorsa, who made a famous Hajj to Mecca in 1324. Shortly after his reign, the Mali Empire began to decline and was ultimately supplanted by its vassal states in the 15th century. The most successful of these was the Mali Empire and the Songhai Empire, expanding its power from about 1460, and eventually surpassed the Mali Empire in both territory and wealth. It continued to prosper until a civil war over succession followed the death of Askia Daud in 1582. The weakened empire fell to invaders from Morocco at the Battle of Tondibi just 3 years later. The Moroccans proved unable to rule the kingdom effectively, however, and it split into many small kingdoms. After the fall of the major West African empires, various kingdoms existed in what is now Guinea. Fulani Muslims migrated to Fouta Djallon in central Guinea and established an Islamic state from 1735 to 1898 with a written constitution. constitution and alternate rulers. The Wassoulou Empire was a short-lived empire, led by Samori Touré in the predominantly Malinké area of what is now Upper Guinea and southwestern Mali. It moved to Ivory Coast before being conquered by the French. Guinea was the country Mufasa died. Colonial era. The slave trade came to the coastal region of Guinea with European traders in the 16th century. Slavery had always been part of everyday life, but the scale increased as slaves were exported to work elsewhere in the triangular trade. Guinea's colonial period began with French military penetration into the area in the mid-19th century. French domination was assured by the defeat in 1898 of the armies of Samori Touré, Mansa of the Wassoulou state and leader of Malinké descent, which gave France control of what today is Guinea and adjacent areas. France negotiated Guinea's present boundaries in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with the British for Sierra Leone, the Portuguese for the Guinea colony, and Liberia. Under the French, the country formed the territory of Guinea within French West Africa, administered by a governor-general resident in Dakar. Lieutenant governors administered the individual colonies, including Guinea. Independence and post-colonial rule. In 1958, the French Fourth Republic collapsed due to political instability and its failures in dealing with its colonies, especially Indochina and Algeria. The founding of a Fifth Republic was supported by the French people, while French President Charles de Gaulle made it clear on 8 August 1958 that France's colonies were to be given a stark choice between more autonomy in a new French community and immediate independence in the referendum to be held on 28 September 1958. The other colonies chose the former, but Guinea, under the leadership of Ahmed Sékou Touré, whose Democratic Party of Guinea had won 56 of 60 seats in 1957 territorial elections, voted overwhelmingly for independence. The French withdrew quickly, and on 2 October 1958, Guinea proclaimed itself a sovereign and independent republic, with Sékou Touré as president. Following France's withdrawal, Guinea quickly aligned itself with the Soviet Union and adopted socialist policies. This alliance was short-lived, however, as Guinea moved towards a Chinese model of socialism. Despite this, however, the country continued to receive aid and investment from capitalist countries such as the U.S. Even the relationship with France improved after the election of Valéry Giscard d'Estaing as French president. Trade increased and the two countries exchanged diplomatic visits. By 1960, Touré had declared the PDG the only legal party. For the next 24 years, the government and the PDG were one. Touré was re-elected unopposed to 4 7-year terms as president, and every 5 years voters were presented with a single list of PDG candidates for the National Assembly, advocating a hybrid African socialism domestically and Pan-Africanism abroad. Touré quickly became a polarizing leader, and his government became intolerant of dissent, imprisoning hundreds and stifling the press. At the same time, the Guinean government nationalized land, removed French-appointed and traditional chiefs from power, and broke ties with the French government and French companies, vacillating between support for the Soviet Union and the United States. Guinea's economic situation became as unpredictable as its diplomatic line, alleging plots and conspiracies against him at home and abroad. Touré's regime targeted real and imagined opponents, driving thousands of political opponents into exile. In 1970, Portuguese forces from neighboring Portuguese Guinea staged Operation Green Sea, a raid into Guinea with the support of exiled Guinean opposition forces. Among other goals, the Portuguese military wanted to kill Camara capture Sékou Touré due his support of the PAIGC, a guerrilla movement operating inside Portuguese Guinea. After several days of fierce fighting, the Portuguese forces retreated after achieving most of the goals. The regime of Sékou Touré increased the number of internal arrests and executions. Sékou Touré died on 26 March 1984 after a heart operation in the United States, and was replaced by Prime Minister Louis Lansana Bivogui, who was to serve as interim president pending new elections. The PDG was due to elect a new leader on 3 April 1984. Under the Constitution, the person would have been the only candidate for president. However, hours before that meeting, Colonels Lansana Conté and Diarra Traoré seized power in a bloodless coup. Conté assumed the role of president, with Traoré serving as prime minister until December. Conté immediately denounced the previous regime's record on human rights, released 250 political prisoners and encouraged approximately 200,000 more to return from exile. He also made explicit the turn away from socialism, but this did little to alleviate poverty, and the country showed no immediate signs of moving towards democracy. In 1992, Conté announced a return to civilian rule, with a presidential poll in 1993 followed by elections to parliament in 1995. Despite his stated commitment to democracy, Conté's grip on power remained tight. In September 2001, the opposition leader Alpha Condé was imprisoned for endangering state security, though he was pardoned 8 months later. He subsequently spent a period of exile in France. In 2001, Conté organized and won a referendum to lengthen the presidential term, and in 2003 began his third term after elections were boycotted by the opposition. In January 2005, Conté survived a suspected assassination attempt while making a rare public appearance in the capital Conakry. His opponents claimed that he was a retired dictator whose departure was inevitable, whereas his supporters believed that he was winning a battle with dissidents. Guinea still faces very real problems, and according to foreign policy is in danger of becoming a failed state. In 2000, Guinea became embroiled in the instability which had long blighted the rest of West Africa as rebels crossed the borders with Liberia and Sierra Leone, and it seemed for a time that the country was headed for civil war. Conté blamed neighboring leaders for coveting Guinea's natural resources, though these claims were strenuously denied. In 2003, Guinea agreed to plans with her neighbors to tackle the insurgents. In 2007, there were big protests against the government, resulting in the appointment of a new prime minister. Recent history. Conté remained in power until his death on 23 December 2008, and several hours following his death, Moussa Dadis Camara seized control in a coup, declaring himself head of a military junta. Protests against the coup became violent and 157 people were killed when, on 28 September 2009, the junta ordered its soldiers to attack people who had gathered to protest Camara's attempt to become president. The soldiers went on a rampage of rape, mutilation, and murder which caused many foreign governments to withdraw their support for the new regime. On 3 December 2009, an aide shot Camara during a dispute about the rampage of September. Camara went to Morocco for medical care. Vice President Sékou Touré flew back from Lebanon to run the country in Camara's absence. On 12 January 2010, Camara was flown from Morocco to Burkina Faso. After meeting in Ouagadougou on 13 and 14 January, Camara Konate and Blaise Compaoré, president of Burkina Faso, produced a formal statement of 12 principles promising a return of Guinea to civilian rule within 6 months. It was agreed that the military would not contest the forthcoming elections, and Camara would continue to remain outside of Guinea. On the 21st of January 2010, the military junta appointed Jean-Marie Doré as Prime Minister of a 6-month transition government leading up to elections. The presidential election was held on the 27th of June and was the first free and fair election since independence in 1958. Ex-Prime Minister Salou Diallo and his rival Alpha Condé emerged as the two runners-up from the second round. However, due to allegations of electoral fraud, the second round of the election was postponed until the 19th of September 2010. On the 22nd of September 2010, the second round was delayed again until the 10th of October. Another delay, until the 24th of October, was announced in early October. Elections were finally held on the 7th of November. Voter turnout was high, and the elections went relatively smoothly. On the 16th of November 2010, Alpha Condé, the leader of the opposition party Rally of the Guinean People, was officially declared the winner. He promised to reform the security sector and review mining contracts. On the night of the 18th of July 2011, President Condé's residence was attacked in an attempted coup. In April 2012, President Condé postponed legislative elections indefinitely, citing the need to ensure that they were transparent and democratic. 2013 protests. The opposition coalition withdrew from the electoral process in mid-February, mainly due to President Condé's insistence on using a suspicious South African firm Waymark Infotech to draw up the registered voter list. In late February 2013, political violence erupted in Guinea after protesters took to the streets to voice their concerns over the transparency of the upcoming May 2013 elections. The demonstrations were fueled by the opposition coalition's decision to step down from the electoral process in protest at the lack of transparency in the preparations for elections. 9 people were killed during the protests, while around 220 were injured, and many of the deaths and injuries were caused by security forces using live fire on protesters. The political violence also led to inter-ethnic clashes between the Fula and Malinke peoples, the latter forming the base of support for President Condé, with the former mainly supporting the opposition. On the 26th of March 2013, the opposition party backed out of the negotiation with the government over the upcoming 12th of May election. The opposition claimed that the government has not respected them, and have not kept any promises they agreed to. This is expected to lead to more protests and fighting in the streets of Guinea. Ebola virus outbreak. On the 25th of March 2014, the World Health Organization said that Guinea's Ministry of Health had reported an outbreak of Ebola virus disease in Guinea. This initial outbreak had a total of 86 cases, including 59 deaths. By 28th of May, there were 281 cases, with 186 deaths. It is believed that the first case was Emile Wamuno, a 2-year-old boy who lived in the village of Meliandou. He fell ill on the 2nd of December 2013 and died on the 6th of December. On the 18th of September 2014, 8 members of an Ebola education healthcare team were murdered by villagers in the town of Wome. As of the 1st of November 2015, there have been 3,810 cases and 2,536 deaths in Guinea. Government and politics. The country is a republic. The president is directly elected by the people and is head of state and head of government. The unicameral National Assembly is the legislative body of the country, and its members are directly elected by the people. The judicial branch is led by the Guinea Supreme Court, the highest and final court of appeal in the country. Guinea is a member of many international organizations, including the African Union, Agency for the French-speaking Community, African Development Bank, Economic Community of West African States, World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, IMF, and the United Nations. Political culture. President Alpha Condé derives support from Guinea's second-largest ethnic group, the Malinke. Guinea's opposition is backed by the Fuller ethnic group, also known as Pule, who account for around 40% of the population. Executive branch. The President of Guinea is normally elected by popular vote for a 5-year term. Candidate must receive a majority of the votes cast to be elected. President. The President governs Guinea, assisted by a council of 25 civilian ministers appointed by him. The government administers the country through 8 regions, 33 prefectures, over 100 sub-prefectures, and many districts. District-level leaders are elected. The President appoints officials to all other levels of the highly centralized administration. Since the 2010 presidential elections, the head of state has been Alpha Condé. Legislative branch. The National Assembly of Guinea, the country's legislative body, has not met since 2008, when it was dissolved after the military coup in December. Elections have been postponed many times since 2007. In April 2012, President Condé postponed the elections indefinitely, citing the need to ensure that they were transparent and democratic. The 2013 Guinean legislative election were held on the 24th of September 2013. President Alpha Condé's party, the Rally of the Guinean People, won a plurality of seats in the National Assembly of Guinea, with 53 out of 114 seats. The opposition parties won a total of 53 seats, and opposition leaders denounced the official results as fraudulent. Foreign relations. Guinea's foreign relations, including those with its West African neighbors, have improved steadily since 1985. Military. Guinea's armed forces are divided into 5 branches: Army, Navy, Air Force, the paramilitary National Gendarmerie, and the Republican Guard, whose chiefs report to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is subordinate to the Minister of Defense. In addition, regime security forces include the National Police Force. The Gendarmerie, responsible for internal security, has a strength of several thousand. The Army, with about 15,000 personnel, is by far the largest branch of the armed forces. It is mainly responsible for protecting the state borders, the security of administered territories, and defending Guinea's national interests. Air Force personnel total about 700. The force's equipment includes several Russian-supplied fighter planes and transports. The Navy has about 900 personnel and operates several small patrol craft and barges. Geography. Guinea shares its northern border with Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, and Mali, and its southern border with Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Ivory Coast. The nation forms a crescent as it curves from its western border on the Atlantic Ocean toward the east and the south. The sources of the Niger River, Gambia River, and Senegal River are all found in the Guinea Highlands. At 245,857 square kilometers, Guinea is roughly the size of the United Kingdom. There are 320 kilometers of coastline and a total land border of 3,400 kilometers. Its neighbors are Ivory Coast, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. It lies mostly between latitudes 7 degrees and 13 degrees north, and longitudes 7 degrees and 15 degrees west. Guinea is divided into four main regions. Maritime Guinea, also known as Lower Guinea of the Basse-Côte lowlands, populated mainly by the Susu ethnic group, the Kula. Mountainous Fujiland that run roughly north-south through the middle of the country, populated by Fulas. The Sahelian Haute Guinea to the northeast, populated by Malinke, and the forested jungle regions in the southeast, with several ethnic groups. Guinea's mountains are the source for the Niger, the Gambia, and Senegal rivers, as well as the numerous rivers flowing to the sea on the west side of the range in Sierra Leone and Ivory Coast. The highest point in Guinea is Mount Nimba at 1,752 meters. Although the Guinean and Ivorian sides of the Nimba Massif are a UNESCO strict nature reserve, the portion of the so-called Guinean backbone continues into Liberia, where it has been mined for decades. The damage is quite evident in the Equatorial region at 7.53806 degrees north, 8.49722 degrees west, 7.53806 minus 8.49722 regions and prefectures. The Republic of Guinea covers 245,857 square kilometers of West Africa, about 10 degrees north of the equator. Guinea is divided into four natural regions with distinct human, geographic, and climatic characteristics. Maritime Guinea covers 18% of the country. Middle Guinea covers 20% of the country. Upper Guinea covers 38% of the country. Forested Guinea covers 23% of the country, and is both forested and mountainous. Guinea is divided into 8 administrative regions and subdivided into 33 prefectures. Conakry is Guinea's capital, largest city, and economic center. Equatorial, located in the Guinea Forestier region in southern Guinea, is the second largest city. Other major cities in the country with a population above 100,000 include Kankan, Kindia, Labe, Guékédou, Bok, Mamu and Kissidougou. The capital Conakry, with a population of 1,667,864, ranks as a special zone. Wildlife of Guinea is very diverse, due to the wide variety of different habitats. The southern moist part of the country lies within Guinean forests of West Africa biodiversity hotspot. However, the northeast characterized by dry savanna. Unfortunately, declining populations of large mammals restricted to uninhabited distant parts of parks and reserves.